Welcome to episode number 48 of Hitting for the Cycle. I'm Ryan Touhey, and I am joined by the founder of the ETB network, Nick Morgasen. He's going to be joining me for this episode. Nick, great to have you for this episode.
Great to be here. Been a while since we've done an episode together, but happy to be here. Great to talk baseball.
Yep, and we got some interesting stories to cover as we get into the final month of the regular season. It is officially September. Today's September 5th, the day of this recording. And yeah, only a few weeks left to the regular season, and we're starting to get a clearer picture of how the playoffs are going to be shaping up. And we're going to get into that. But before we do, we, of course, want to remind everybody to please follow Hitting for the Cycle on Facebook, X, and Instagram at HFTC Follow the Empty the Bench Podcast Network at ETB Network. Follow our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/ETB Network. You see it right here on this graphic. And finally, listen to us on whatever platforms you get your podcasts.
Hitting for the Cycle and the Empty the Bench Podcast Network presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. A lot we've been doing. We did the Olympics over the summer. We did some WNBA. After this recording, but we've already done Thursday Night Football as a stream on Playback as well. So we're doing a lot over there as well. So make sure you check us out on Playback.
All right, so we're going to get into it, and what better way to start than to complain about the Yankees again, which is how a lot of episodes I feel are going nowadays. And this one takes the cake. So September obviously is call-ups for Major League Baseball teams. You can expand your roster. You can add 3 additional players to your roster, I believe. The Yankees were at 25 men, obviously going into September, so you can expand from 25 to 28. And the name that many people were throwing out there, no-brainer, if you ask me, was their number one prospect, Jasson Dominguez, who briefly made an appearance this year at the Little League Classic against the Tigers. Didn't have a good game, but you threw him again, but you fed him to probably the eventual Cy Young Award winner, Tariq Skubal. So that was a tough task to ask from him. But obviously, Dominguez, a lot of promise for this young kid. Obviously made his debut last year and did it in style, hitting a home run in his first at-bat off future Hall of Famer Justin Verlander. Just tore the cover off the baseball when he first got up here. Unfortunately, of course, had a tear in his UCL. I had to go under the knife, had to get Tommy John surgery. So his stint in the major leagues was very brief last year. He would have been the starting left fielder for the Yankees this season had it not been for that injury. Instead, the Yankees went out and made a rare trade with the Red Sox, obviously acquiring Alex Verdugo. Verdugo's been in left field for the majority of the season, obviously. Verdugo's been a massive disappointment this year for the Yankees, and he's in a contract year. So, it made sense for fans to say, all right, this is the time for Dominguez to come up and show what he's made of. Dominguez obviously had some injury history earlier this year as well. He had an oblique injury earlier this year. So, he's had a hard time staying healthy, but he's been back and he's been healthy and he's been tearing the cover off the minors. It seems like he's hitting a home run every single game in AAA, and he's hitting over 300. Last I checked, I think he's hitting 310 or something like that in AAA. But to the shock of many Yankee fans, and myself included, the Yankees did not call up Dominguez. Instead, they called up an outfielder, Duke Ellis, who is a speedster, and it looks like the Yankees are going to be using him strictly for stealing bases. And in addition to that, they also brought up Scott Efros, who's had a very hard time staying healthy ever since he got traded to the Yankees 2 years ago at the trade deadline. He came back up. Anthony Rizzo's back after fracturing his arm in Boston a couple of months ago. And I believe those were the 3 guys that they brought back. I might be missing 1 or 2 more. They brought back Ron Marinaccio. Marinaccio's back up here as well. And, those were the moves that the Yankees made. And to not bring up Jasson Dominguez is absolutely egregious, if you ask me. And obviously, like I mentioned, Verdugo, no doubt, is a solid ball player when he's on. When he's on, he's solid. When he's not, he's useless. And he's been useless for about 2 months now. He's just been in this is the worst season by far of his career. He's never played this poorly in either Los Angeles or Boston, mostly Boston because he was only in LA for a short period of time before the Red Sox made that trade for Mookie Betts. But Verdugo has just been a nightmare at the plate. He has just not hit consistently for 2 months now, really ever since he hit that home run in his return to Fenway Park back in June. He's just been useless. And a lot of the time, it's the same result every time he comes to the plate. He's been grounding out to the right side of the infield, either to first base or second base. And he makes it maybe 5 feet down the first base line. He's not hustling. I'm starting to see why Red Sox fans were starting to get tired of him. I'm starting to get tired of him. And he just has not been clutch at all. He has not contributed offensively. And at this point, I'm thinking, how much worse can you do with Dominguez? I don't think you can do any worse than what Verdugo's doing for you. And plus, like I said, the Yankees don't owe Verdugo anything. He's a free agent after this year. He's not coming back next year. I know Judge advocated for him to come to the Yankees in the offseason, but who gives a crap? You're trying to win the World Series. Put the best product you can on the field. It makes no sense whatsoever for the Yankees not to do this. And there was talk about, they're trying to, fiddle with Dominguez's service time so that maybe he could win the Rookie of the Year next year, and that would allow the Yankees to get maybe an extra draft pick or something like that, which is completely asinine if you ask me.
It is stupid. Why are you messing with? I never understood the whole messing with the service time nonsense. We've seen that quite a few times. If I'm not mistaken, like the Blue Jays tried to do that with Vlad Jr. also when they tried to bring him up. Just stop at the service time. Let him come up and play. I understand injuries are a problem. The Yankees have had a history where they just don't control their farm system very well, a la Jobber Chamberlain, if I throw a name from the Wayback Machine here, where if they actually controlled him properly, they would have had a good pitcher and not created these dumb rules to get him up to the majors. But bring up Dominguez. What do you have to lose at this point? Look at your infield, though, too, with Rizzo, who came back after that long injury. Heck, they didn't even know he had the injury at one point when he was on the field.
That was last year.
No, but I'm just saying generally, they just don't pay attention to their team very well. Look at what happened with DJ this year in decline. They need Dominguez. They need to allow him to come up.
I think it's probably rubs Dominguez the wrong way too. He's probably thinking to himself, here I am doing everything I can, trying to get my way back up here to help you guys. You guys, were the ones who signed me when I think he was like 19 or something like that. Like he was a baby when he signed with you guys, and this is how you're treating him. It's stupid. It's absolutely stupid.
The Yankees are bad with their farm system. No one's willing to admit it. It's almost like they want to just keep them down there again. But that's a whole Major League Baseball issue, that they manipulate the service time so that these guys can't become free agents as fast as they want to be.
Yeah, and it's so ridiculous and it's so frustrating. The Yankees have been so inconsistent for the past 2 months now. Ever since that series, it's weird. I mentioned how Verdugo stopped hitting after that Fenway series. The Yankees really stopped winning on a consistent basis beginning with that Fenway series. Since that series, they have been mediocre at best. They've been very inconsistent, and, their offense can either be hit or miss, and their pitching can either be hit or miss. And, when it comes to their offense, they've had some holes in there, and Verdugo is one of the biggest holes, if not the biggest hole. Verdugo's obviously been horrible, like I mentioned. You brought up DJ. DJ's had the worst season of his life imaginable, and he's been one of the worst players in all of Major League Baseball this year.
I'm surprised they haven't thought about cutting him at one point. That's how bad he's been.
He's been horrible. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think they're only keeping him for the sake of they feel a bit more comfortable with his defense than some other guys. That's basically, I think, the main reason why they're keeping him there. And they still owe him quite a bit of money on that contract. That contract is looking more and more of an albatross with each passing day.
It's strange because earlier in the year, like Jose Abreu, who got cut, and what was it? The Astros are paying $30 million to basically have him off the team,
something like that,
which is insane. Just to pay someone $30 million to go away. I just don't. The Yankees have never really been like that, where they're going to cut somebody for the sake of money. At least not recently that I remember. But
last year they did it with Aaron Hicks.
Right, but was it that much money? I don't even remember.
They still owed him they're still paying him. They still owe him like $20 or $30 million, if I'm not mistaken.
but he was so painstakingly
He
bad.
was
Like
painstakingly bad. So is DJ.
I mean, DJ too,
DJ's
but
actually, you look at the stats, DJ's actually been worse than Hicks was for the last 2 years. But the big difference, I think, between DJ and Hicks was that I think Yankee fans, because the Yankee fans advocated for the Yankees to extend LeMahieu long term, and I was one of them at the time because he was coming off a batting title. Granted, it was the COVID shortened season. Nobody asked for the Yankees to extend Aaron Hicks for as long as they did.
nobody.
So that was a big difference, and fans were chomping at the bit to cut the cord with Hicks much sooner than they were asking to cut the cord with DJ. But DJ, it's just sad to watch. He's had a lot of foot injuries over the past couple of years, and his bat speed is so slow, and he's just nowhere near the same player as he was from 2019 to 2020.
And he was making errors that were uncharacteristic of him too, which
made a critical error in Texas a couple of nights ago, and we're going to get into that loss in a second with the second half of this graphic. Might as well get into that right now. Clay Holmes blows another save. What else is new? Holmes has been the Yankees closer now for 2 seasons, dating back to last year. Dating back to last year. And to say he is a heart attack would be an understatement. There's a reason why Yankee fans refer to him as cardiac Clay. It's because he never, ever makes it easy, no matter what. Even the games that he did save at the beginning of the year, he always made it interesting. Like go back to that first series of the season in Houston. Those 2 saves that he had on opening day, he was bailed out by that throw home from Juan Soto in right field. Remember, he had given up like 3 straight hits before that play. And also the final game of that 4-game series where he was saved by John Birdie for making a diving stab off the bat of Jose Altuve, who would have hit an RBI double down the left field line. So those were only 2 instances. He's also been bailed out a couple of more times this year. But 11 blown saves is very hard to do. This is it's ridiculous. Like every time he comes out to the mound, your heart just sinks to your stomach. You're just dreading it. You're waiting for something bad to happen. And he just gets in his own head and he just crumbles under the pressure. Once one guy gets on, he just unravels. And it happens so quickly. And it happened again on Tuesday night against the Rangers. He comes in when the Yankees are clinging to a 1-run lead. He gets the first guy to ground out to second base. Then he gives up a single. And after that single, he just lost it. He walked the next 2 and then gave up a grand slam to Wyatt Langford. And the Rangers won that game 7-4. And for Holmes, it's just been a disastrous year. It really has been. I mean, overall, you look at his numbers, they're not horrible, but that doesn't tell the story. 11 blown saves really tells the story. And he's cost the Yankees a good 5 or 6 games this season. And the big complaint that the Yankees fans have had this year is he doesn't blow those many saves. Yankees probably have like a 4 or 5 game lead over Baltimore right now instead of being a half game back of them in the AL East.
I mean, we're talking about history when it comes to the amount of blown saves. I mean, I was doing some research on it, and most blown saves since Dave Righetti in 1987.
Yep.
I mean, holy cow, this guy flakes under the pressure. I mean, and by the way, he threw an absolute meatball on that grand slam.
It was a terrible pitch.
I mean, I don't know if he was trying to spin a pitch over at that point to get a strike or not, but
you didn't want to walk the bases loaded.
Right. But I'm just saying, this is Major League Baseball. When you spin a pitch up there, it's going to get destroyed. And I don't know. And Aaron Boone doesn't really have a lot of answers because he keeps telling the media, it's just like, all right, we're not ready to make that change. What do you mean you're not ready to make that change? I mean, it's been time for what, months? I mean, this guy can't pitch under the pressure. This is not Mariano Rivera anymore in a Yankee uniform. This is Clay Holmes. Like, we need a guy who can close.
Yeah, and I mean, a major complaint with Clay Holmes is that you can see he's just not a closer. He doesn't strike anybody out. He pitches to contact, and it comes back to bite him in the ass. And it's really just, it's killing the team. He's hurting the team, unfortunately, as the closer. Not Yankee fans will tell you Holmes is not a bad pitcher. When he's on, he's very good. His sinker could be very devastating when it's working, but it hasn't been working for months now. And it's
a field
time that
pitch.
Yankees do a closer by committee, if you ask me. I don't care who's in the closer role. I honestly give me Luis Hill in the closer role. He was on an innings limit this year. He throws gas. He's got strikeout stuff. As a closer, you need a guy who can shut down the opposition and not make contact whatsoever. And to me, Hill's the guy for that position. I know that he's never closed a game in his life. I don't give a crap. This Yankee bullpen has not been good at all for the past couple of months. It's been pretty bad. And, the Yankees, I mean, you look at the guys who are in that bullpen. I mean, their most consistently reliable pitcher, I think, this year. I mean, he's probably he's had a few clunkers here and there. The most reliable arm this whole year has been Luke Weaver in that bullpen. Jake Cousins has been pretty good too. I mean, those guys have, more than done enough, if you asked me, to maybe consider either of them to be a closer. Not the permanent closer. If you want to rotate between the two of them, by all means, you can try that. I wouldn't be opposed to that. Tim Hill has had some moments for the Yankees this year, but yeah, you can't keep running Holmes out anymore. It's time. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again.
My favorite saying of all time.
Expecting a different result. Did you really think Holmes was going to save that game?
No.
One-run game? Who in their right mind thought that Clay Holmes was going to get the job done?
No way.
Nobody. Only the brilliance of Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman thought that Clay Holmes would get the save on Tuesday. There's a higher chance of him blowing the save than getting the save. Enough's enough. Cut the crap. Cut the cord with Clay as the closer. I don't care if he'll be upset about it. Honestly, I think he'll be more relieved than upset about it at this point.
I mean, move him up in the bullpen at this point. Make him a 7th inning guy. Make him an 8th inning gugu. Whatever. I think he would even be better in an 8th inning than a 9th inning role.
Well, honestly, even if the Yankees do move him up, how can you trust him in those innings as well? He's been so untrustworthy.
Sporadic.
So sporadic. There's always men on base whenever he comes in to pitch. I don't know if you maybe want to bring him in with guys on base. That's probably a bad idea.
No, there's some pitchers where you have to bring them in at the start of an inning, but that's a lot of pitchers. Because it's hard to get into a rhythm when you bring someone in the middle of the way the rules are now. You really can't bring somebody in the middle of an inning for the most part anyway now because of the 3-batter minimum. But this guy can't. He's not a pressure pitcher. He can't do it at all.
It's over. It's time for the Yankees to figure it out. I mean, Boone kind of hinted that is what they're going to do. He didn't say directly, which he never does. He never says
anything directly. It's frustrating.
No, yeah. I mean, he said he misconstrues his words here and there, and he does it in a way that people are gonna be like, "Huh?"
Watch the John Boy Media interview every week. For most people who don't know John Boy Media, big digital personality, big Yankee fans. He gets fired up and angry at John Boy for asking these questions. What other questions do you expect? Your closer stinks.
Yeah, I mean, I understand Boone is trying to defend his players, but once in a while there are things you cannot defend. You can't defend Clay Holmes anymore as the closer. There's no way you can.
You can't be diplomatic at this point.
11 blown saves is more than enough. That is, I mean, I remember 7 years ago in 2017 when Aroldis Chapman was going through his struggles. I think he blew maybe 3 saves in a row or something.
And people were calling for him to lose the job.
Yes, and you know what? He did lose the job for a couple of weeks. Girardi had the cojones to say, hey, look, we're going to move you up a little bit. We're going to take you out of the closer role. We'll give it to Dellin Betances for a little bit, but you need to figure it out. And you know what? Chapman figured it out, and he was back as the closer for the postseason. And for the most part, he pitched pretty well in the 2017 postseason for the Yankees. So, I mean, if Chapman's leash was that short, I mean, why is Holmes' leash this freaking long? It's asinine.
Because I think Aaron Boone just doesn't want to give up on the fact that or admit that he was wrong. But that's a lot of people in professional sports. They don't want to admit they made a mistake.
Honestly, if they had taken out Holmes as the closer earlier, if they had given him a break, maybe like a 2 to 3 week break or something like that, I'm not saying it would have happened, but he maybe was able to get his confidence back, and maybe he would be able to get back into the closer role, at this time of year, and he wouldn't be going through this. But the fact is, he's been the closer since day one of this season, and he's just been the shakiest, most inconsistent, most unreliable closer you could possibly imagine. The Yankees have handled this so poorly.
I mean, mental stability. A lot of people talk about professional sports, and sometimes, like you said, you need a break. We've seen it with even the best of players. You need a break to clear the head. And unfortunately, he's been going through it all season where where he's probably saying, I need a break. I don't have one. And I'm pressured to be in every moment this whole year. I mean, that's what they get paid for. But unfortunately, the guy is just almost blown out. Like, just you're gonna have to find somebody else, whoever that is, and it's gonna be tough that you don't have a consistent closer going into the playoffs because you need someone who can dominate and end games, but they just don't have it.
Yep. I mean, like I said, Holmes has cost the Yankees a good 5 or 6 games this year, and they could have had a little bit of a breather in the AL East over Baltimore. But the Yankees have just not played well. They've lost 3 straight series. They dropped 2 out of 3 to the Rangers in Arlington this week. That's 3 straight series losses. They lost to the Nationals last week in Washington, lost to the Cardinals at home, and they now lost 2 out of 3 to the Rangers. Marcus Stroman was so embarrassing last night. He had absolutely nothing to show on the mound. And the way that the Yankees how these series have been working for the Yankees is that they'll get your hopes up in game 1 of a series. They'll take the first game. Then they'll choke away the second game in some way, shape, or form, mostly because of Clay. And then the third game, they won't even be competitive, and they'll just get blown out. That's basically how it's been going for the Yankees recently.
Well, let's talk about another stat that's been an issue all season. Teams under 500.
Yep.
They just cannot beat the backside of a barn when it comes to teams under 500. Nationals, I mean that was bad.
Yep. Cardinals were under 500 going into that series.
Rangers too.
Rangers have had a miserable year.
They're Rockies.
Not going to the playoffs. Rockies, they did take 2 out of 3 from the Rockies, but that second game, they got their asses kicked. Will Warren had nothing against the Rockies.
Horrible. I think they gave up, 10 or 11 runs in that game?
Yeah, it was very bad. That's the thing, too. The bullpen has just been bad. It's been horrible. And, I don't trust this Yankee bullpen that much at all. I mean, I'm hoping to God Ian Hamilton and Nick Birdie come back because I can't watch Mark Leiter Jr. for another second. He's been miserable since coming over from Chicago. And, yeah, it's the Yankees are not in a good spot right now. I mean, they're only half a game back of the Orioles because somehow the White Sox actually won a game last night against the Orioles. The White Sox actually clobbered the Orioles. Not as bad as they clobbered the Yankees, but they clobbered the Orioles last night 8-1, which was September 5th.
Wow.
September 4th, I'm sorry.
That's still crazy, though.
Yeah, and the Yankees did not take advantage. The Yankees have not taken advantage of the Orioles' struggles this year, and vice versa. The Orioles haven't taken advantage of the Yankees' struggles this year.
Well, and the Orioles are going through a stretch right now where they're playing the White Sox and the Rockies, I think, on the schedule. Like, the Orioles are going to take the lead the way the Yankees are playing, and they have, but they could take this division over the way that their opponents are so easy right now.
Yep. And, the Yankees actually have a little bit of competition this weekend. They're in Wrigley Field taking on the Cubs. The Cubs have been playing well. The Cubs are fighting for a wild card spot, so, they're playing with a lot more urgency than the Yankees are. So, the Cubs are going to be, giving it their all. It's not going to be an easy task. Wrigley Field's a very tough place to play for a visiting team. The Yankees obviously don't visit Wrigley Field that often. I don't think they've visited Wrigley Field, I believe, since 2017. So it's going to be the first time in 7 years that they're going to be playing at that stadium. It's going to be a challenge. It's not going to be an easy series, and we'll see how it goes. But the Yankees really need that series. Hopefully, not playing a team that's so bad takes a little bit of pressure off of them. I don't know.
That is such a silly statement. Like, I'm laughing at it because, we play better against good teams, and then when we need the relax moment against the horrible teams, we just can't beat them at all. So,
Well, we've been covering the Yankees for the first quarter of this episode, so I think we ought to move on to the next topic. And let's talk about the other New York team who have been playing very well recently, the New York Mets, who are just on fire right now. They've won 7 in a row. They're coming off a sweep of the Red Sox, a very impressive 3-game sweep at Citi Field, and now they're just a half game out of the National League wildcard spot. And, going into this season, not many people thought much about the Mets. But, the Mets have really exceeded expectations this year. Honestly, I think Met fans should throw Carlos Mendoza a bag of roses for the way that he has led this team to where they are at right now. The Mets have really just gelled together. They're playing loose. They're playing with energy. They're playing with fire. They're playing with passion. They're fighting for it. They want to make the playoffs, and you can tell everyone is contributing. Francisco Lindor is having the best season of his career. He's going to get some MVP votes. I don't think he's going to win it this year, though. I think it's going to be Ohtani for the 1,000th time, but because the writers just love Ohtani. But Lindor has led the charge, and as a result, the Mets have just taken off. And their lineups has been playing very well. A lot of guys are hitting at the right time. Their pitching, for the most part, has held up. And what else can you say about the Mets? They've been very good.
I mean, most valuable player, in my opinion. Now, I know that Ohtani is going to get all the votes, but if you look at the two, who's been more valuable to their team? I think Lindor has been more valuable to the Mets than Ohtani's been to the Dodgers. The Dodgers have all these guys that will produce and do what they got to do. You take Ohtani off that team, the Dodgers probably still make the playoffs, regardless.
Mhm.
The Mets without Lindor, do they make the playoffs?
No.
Not at all. And that's what I don't get about the MVP award in any sport. We take the guy. Oh, we'll take the. It's more a popular vote in today's game or today's world of sports than value. And if you look at Lindor, I forgot what his stats. I think he's got close to 30 home runs and 90 RBIs, and he's hitting for decently high average. So this guy has been a force. And I remember when Mets fans, when he first came in, people were giving him a lot of crap because he was not performing up to contract. He was injured. And now he's really showing who he is. And it's finally nice to see him performing. Just looking at his numbers here. So he's hitting 274. He's got 84 RBIs. Let's see if I can get the full stats. But he's having a good year.
Mm-hmm.
You got to give him credit where credit is due. Was the contract in Albatross over 300 million plus? Yes, but he's doing what he's finally doing, and New York fans should be very happy to have him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you make a good point. And I've been, openly, kind of critical of Francisco Lindor too. I've said that, he definitely has talent and he's got the skill set, but he's never lived up to it. I always, I was one who always claimed Lindor was overrated because he, in my opinion, and I kind of still have that feeling inside. I just feel that he can do so much more. And now this, like I said, this is the best season of his career, and he's going to get some MVP votes. And he's finally showing me, what he is capable of, when he's on. So we'll see where the Mets go from here. But yeah, I mean, I'm still kind of ambivalent with Lindor overall. I would like to see a little more consistency out of him. If he's able to have a couple more seasons like this, then maybe I'll drop the overrated opinion on him, even though I still kind of have that. So we'll see.
I mean, I was always surprised when he left the Guardians.
Mm-hmm.
That was a shocker to me. I thought he was going to be long term there, and that team was really good with him there. But I guess like every other player chasing the payday, ending up in New York. But this guy is good. I looked at the full stats. So he's 274, 30 home runs, 84 RBIs, OPS 844. Like the guy is finally doing what he was brought here to do.
Yeah, and not only that, he's got a 15-game hitting streak, and he's got a career best 33 game on base streak right now. So he's been getting on. He's been scoring a lot of runs for the Mets. And
also, he doesn't want to sit either. Like he's one of those rare guys that wants to play every game. Even when Mendoza has said, "I'll give you a game," no, I don't want to sit. Like I like him for that demeanor that he wants to play every game.
Yeah, and the Mets right now, as a result of the 7-game winning streak, they are now 12 games over 500, which is only 4 less than the Yankees right now. Remember when the Yankees got off to such that hot start this year and how far the Mets were from where they were? Now the roles have reversed. Now the Mets are the hottest team in New York, and the Yankees are the coldest. Obviously, it's only 2 teams, but you get what I'm saying.
I mean, the hot streak is saving the Mets right now. Now, will the horrible start to the season affect the Mets down the stretch for making the playoffs? I don't know. The same thing I could say for the Yankees as well. They had the hot streak. That's saving them from being completely out.
Yep.
Right now.
Yep.
So
it's a tale of it's literally the complete opposite of what happened at the beginning of the year. And the Braves, they're clinging on for dear life in the playoff hunts. And honestly, I don't know if the Braves can withstand the losses of guys like Acuna and Albies and Austin Riley. I just don't know if I can see the Braves making the playoffs without those guys. I mean, the Braves have been playing pretty decently recently. They've won a couple of series, but they're still a good 2 to 3 weeks left in the regular season. And, the Mets, I think, are just adding more and more pressure to the Braves. And, it's going to be an interesting race down the stretch. I mean, I still think this is going to come down to that final wild card spot. I think it's going to be, the Mets and the Braves for that sixth and final wild card spot in the National League. I think the Padres and the Diamondbacks have those 4 and 5 spots locked up. So obviously it'll be an interesting battle between two National League East Division foes. And how sweet would it be for Met fans if they finally overcome the Braves? The Braves have just tortured the Mets for ages now, really dating back to the 1990s, the 99 NLCS between those two teams, where the Braves nearly blew a 3-0 lead in the best of 7, but barely hung on and won Game 6. And, the Mets have just always been playing second fiddle to the Braves. It would be very sweet for Met fans to overcome the Braves and take away that playoff spot from them and to get in the playoffs. So,
I mean, you have two teams there. I mean, the Mets, the Cubs. I mean, I don't know if you want to throw the Cardinals. They're kind of a dark horse after that. But
when we talk about pretenders and contenders, I don't really buy the Cardinals as a.
I don't really as much either. But again, still within the 6 games. I mean, it's going to be a tall task. It's more for the Mets being a half game out. But
I mean, the Mets, they're playing with a lot of confidence. And honestly, I could see them, continue this momentum, down the road. I think they're gonna continue to win. I think they'll definitely, I think in my mind, finish with a winning record this year, which would exceed expectations for what they were supposed to do coming into the season. People had them at 500 at best.
They were supposed to be a rebuild team. That's really what their expectation was, but they finally did what they needed to do. They got a piece at the trade deadline. They did what, and I don't know, they're going to make a run for it. But just to talk about the Braves injuries, that's keeping the Mets in it on the wild card side. You lost Acuna early on for the second year or
second time
in 3 years.
Yep.
Strider out for the year, which is a massive loss. Riley out for the year. That young core that they had just does not exist right now because of all the injuries.
I know, and then the Braves have had to rely on their pitching to keep them in it as well. I mean, Chris Sale is probably going to win the Cy Young in the National League this year, which is
crazy, right?
Crazy. It's absolutely nuts. I thought Chris Sale was done after 2022 or something like that, but he's had a renaissance year, and he's probably going to lock up his first Cy Young award. Without him, God knows where the Braves would have been.
I mean, do you think the Red Sox are going to be pissed if he wins the Cy Young award?
I think the Red Sox fans are going to be pissed. But I mean, he did win a World Series for them in 2018.
True.
So, they always have that. They always have that at least. I mean, he did strike out Manny Machado to seal the deal. So
that's a good point.
They'll always have that lasting memory of him. I don't think Red Sox fans will ever boo Chris Sale or anything like that. But I mean, man, they could have achieved so much more if they had made wiser choices. But alas, I won't complain as a Yankee fan. But yeah, the Mets have been playing very well. They've won 7 in a row, and we'll see where they go from here. And you can thank Francisco Lindor and Carlos Mendoza and company. That team is they're a nucleus, and you can tell that they all love playing with one another. And, the past 2 World Series, 22 and 23, the National League pennant winners were the number 6 seed. So we'll see if that trend continues this year with whoever locks up the seed this year, if it's the Mets or if it's the Braves or the Cubs. We'll see what happens, but it's going to be a tight race down the stretch. So now we'll move on, and we want to just quickly talk about was it 105 miles an hour? Yeah. So the Angels reliever. This is going to be a very brief topic right here.
Yeah, brief.
Very brief. The Angels closer, Ben Joyce. You look at him from afar, and he doesn't really stand out to you too much. He has a very slim frame. But this guy throws bullets, and
quite literally.
We're not exaggerating. He threw a pitch against the Dodgers 2 nights ago, I believe, on Tuesday, which was September 3rd, clocked at 105.5 miles an hour.
It's crazy.
Very impressive, but also it sounds extremely unhealthy. And, with the way that pitchers throw nowadays and the amount of injuries that come and go, I just feel like this guy's a Tommy John waiting to happen. I hate to say it. I really do. I do not wish that on any pitcher in Major League Baseball. But, I mean, isn't this kind of excessive? 105?
Yes.
Do we really need to go this high?
It's obsessive. It's crazy. And by the way, just to give you a stat on this, this is not the fastest pitch in Major League Baseball history. If you, it's the third fastest pitch in Major League Baseball history. I'm assuming you can probably guess who has the highest pitch.
Chapman?
Yeah.
All right, that's
105.8.
Mm-hmm.
And Chapman had the second fastest pitch at 105.7.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know. I don't think has Chapman had injuries? I don't even remember.
Chapman has actually not had many injuries, but Chapman is built like a freaking bull. That's the thing.
I mean, the guy just lets it all go on the mound, and somehow he hasn't gotten hurt, or at least not significantly.
Well, that's Chapman's natural throwing ability. Ever since he first came up to the big leagues, all the way back in 2010 when he was with the Reds, every time he just unleashed a pitch, it was always clocked at 100 to 105 miles an hour. Or
he was an anomaly at the time.
That he really was kind of the starting point for how major league pitchers are the way they are today. That he was kind of the first guy who came out there and consistently threw 100 miles an hour without seemingly breaking a sweat. I mean, nowadays, you line up a row of 10 pitchers. I'd say 7 or 8 out of 10 of them can reach 100 to 103 miles an hour on a
which is crazy.
Which is crazy to think about. But back then in 2010, I would say maybe it would be like 2 or 3 out of 10 could hit 100 miles an hour consistently. And Chapman really was the first of them to really be able to just do it without breaking a sweat. So I look at Aroldis Chapman as kind of like a turning point in the way pitchers have pitched. I mean, nowadays, more and more, a lot of guys just have gained more velocity and more zip on that fastball. And pitching has just become something totally different today than it was maybe 10 to 15 years ago.
I mean, I hate to say this, but Dr. James Andrews is going to be making a lot of money over the next couple of years just because of all the Tommy John surgeries that are going to be coming down the pike. The arm is not naturally made to throw this miles per hour. It's just not. The torque, the snap, because everyone talks about the snap, if you're watching on the video side, the snap of the arm.
Mm-hmm.
The arm is not naturally made to do that at all. And now, like you said, like every pitcher, it's not just 8 out of 10 for the most part, it's everyone. You don't survive in the majors unless you throw 100 miles per hour, which is silly. And you don't see the pitchers anymore. Like one that comes to mind, Mike Myers, who is with the Yankees and the Red Sox.
Remember Mike Myers, yep.
Who you don't see pitchers like that anymore, where they come in for relief appearances more than trying to strike people out. He was a submariner, but he was a really good pitcher back in the day. You just don't see it anymore.
Nope, not at all. And I mean, submarine pitchers are a rare phenomenon nowadays. Not many guys throw underarm or sidearm as much as they used to in the old days. But yeah, I mean, 105.5 miles an hour, good for Joyce. I mean, it's impressive, but yeah, I just hope he drinks his milk and keeps up the potassium and everything in his body, because I don't want him to go through a significant arm injury too soon.
I'm not holding my breath. I think he's going to get hurt at some point.
I think it'll probably happen at some point, but I mean, same thing with, it also scares me with Paul Skeens too. Paul Skeens is only 21 years old, and he throws at 100 miles an hour consistently, effortlessly. Everybody gets all giddy and excited when a guy who throws bullets, takes the mound. And at the same time, I'm holding my breath like, oh, God, please don't throw out your arm. Please don't throw out your arm.
Like the Pirates have a great pitcher, like a star in the making. Like they have people that want to come to the ballpark and watch the games. Mm-hmm. And then when he gets hurt and he can't pitch for a full year, what are the Pirates going to have?
Well, I'll tell you what they didn't have last night. Hits. They got no hits by Shota Imanaga and 2 relievers. You liked that transition, didn't you?
I did, actually.
Yeah. So the Cubs threw a combined no-no against the Pittsburgh Pirates last night at Wrigley Field. They clobbered the Pirates 12-0. Shota Imanaga, what a first year he's had in Major League Baseball. I mean, he got off to that great start. He cooled off, in the middle of the summer. But overall, I'd say Imanaga's had a very good year. And the Cubs have actually had a pretty good year for the most part. I mean, the Cubs weren't really expected to do much. There were times where you look at them, you thought, oh, man, it may be over for them. They were inconsistent a lot during the summer, and they kind of are a little bit too inconsistent for my liking. I don't know if I buy them as a playoff team. they are only 4 games above 500 at 72-68, but they've been playing probably their best baseball of the whole season recently. And yeah, I mean, they made history last night. Another no hitter in 2024. I
I think
believe
it's the fourth, right?
it's the fourth no hitter, I believe, and I think it's like the second or third. I think it's the second combined no hitter.
Yeah, there's a few combined no hitters this year, which is kind of a rare thing too. Like, this is going to sound odd, but a no hitter pitched by one pitcher is actually more consistently happening than the combined no hitter.
Yep.
Um, Also, another thing about this no hitter, first time at Wrigley Field since 1972.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, with how old Wrigley Field is, being the second oldest stadium in all of Major League Baseball, that this is only the second no hitter in 52 years. That's pretty crazy to believe. And I mean, people were wondering if Counsell would allow Imanaga to go the full distance. He pulled him after 7 innings after throwing 96 pitches. In all honesty, I was a little disappointed that he didn't at least try and stretch him out a little bit for the 8th inning. I mean, I know that his pitch count was getting up there, but
let him pitch.
I mean, how many opportunities in life is he going to have to accomplish this?
He's not going to pitch for 5 days. Like, just let him pitch.
Yeah, I mean, Imanaga he only walked 2 batters as well, and he threw 66 of his 96 pitches for strikes, and he lowered his ERA to below 3 to 2.99, and Imanaga now has a WHIP of 1.02 through 153 and 1/3 innings pitched. So
by the way, he's probably getting underpaid too.
Yep, probably. But so overall, Imanaga's had a very good year for the Cubs, and he's been a very enjoyable bright spot for them in this season. And yeah, so the Cubs combined no hits. The Pirates, another no hitter in Major League Baseball this season. There's always at least like 3 or 4 each year, I'd say.
How odd is that statement? Because when we were younger, like, no hitters were a rarity. Now,
this is the first combined no hitter actually this season.
Is it?
Yeah, because
maybe it was last year.
The other no hitters this year were Ryan Blanco of the Astros, who did it at the beginning of the year.
Who almost had a second one.
Then there was Dylan Cease against the Nationals, and most recently was Blake Snell of the Giants. So they had 3 regular no hitters, and this is now the only combined no hitter. So this is the 4th no hitter this season, first combined no hitter.
Okay, I think there was a couple last year, maybe, but so the pitchers have thrown no hitters is kind of ironic this year. Blake Snell, who couldn't get into a spring camp if he tried.
Yep. Dylan Cease, who wasn't even a Padre at the beginning of spring training.
Right. I mean, interesting. The pitchers have thrown no hitters this year.
Yeah, and Ryan Blanco, who I don't even think was on the Astros that much last year. He wasn't. Yeah.
And he almost threw 2 no hitters this year.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, Blanco's been a revelation for the Astros. Of course, he's been. But yeah, so the Cubs make history last night against the Pirates with a combined no. And now we're going to talk about a contract that was signed. Matt Chapman has been extended by the San Francisco Giants, and this is a 6-year deal, and it is worth
$151 million.
$1 million. This is for Bob Nightingale of USA Today. This kind of came out of left field. I don't know what the whole purpose of this is. I don't know if the Giants are trying to build around Matt Chapman. Chapman's a solid player, I think.
He's been around for a long time, too.
He's been around since 2017. Chapman, I think he's 30 or 31 years old.
Yeah.
He's always been a very good defensive third baseman. He's a very good defensive third baseman.
It's a power hitter, but strikes out
way too much. Way too much. So, I mean, I'm ambivalent towards him, and I really don't know why the Giants made this move. I mean, maybe because I think Chapman might be a West Coast guy, because he did start out in Oakland.
In Oakland, yeah.
He was in Oakland at the beginning of his career. But, I mean, I don't know what the Giants intend on doing with this, building around him or something like that. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't try and use this kind of money or contract to, for somebody maybe like Blake Snell, when he's going to be a free agent, or something like that. I don't know. I really don't understand what the whole logic is with this contract. I mean,
I don't think there is any logic. I mean, also, here's the other ridiculous thing, and this is something I have an issue with in sports, not just baseball. No deferred money, full no trade clause. I have an issue with no trade clauses. I call them idiot clauses when they're put into contracts because basically you're depriving, and if he has a bad first 2 years, you're stuck.
Yeah, it's weird. This is just a weird contract. Like, the Giants are mediocre. I don't really know if they have, a bright future within the next couple of seasons. I think they're just going to be mid at best for like the next maybe 2-3 years or something like that. I just don't see how they're going to be contenders so soon. I mean, obviously you have more opportunities with all these wild card spots, but I mean, I look at the Giants and I look at them and I'm like, I see a bunch of washed up guys past their prime on this.
A lot of old guys that were on prior playoff teams.
Yep.
Now being stuck in the Bay. It also says that they're replacing the contract he's on now with this one. So it's not being added on top of. It's completely being ripped up and replaced. That's another one I don't get either.
So this is the first year of his 6-year contract now?
I think after this year, it'll be 6-year deal. This
year kicks in.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Which is, that's a whole nother odd thing. But it says it's going to be a total of $170 million by the time the end of this season.
I mean, I don't know what it was that I don't know what the Giants see in Chapman that thinks that he's worth this kind of money in this many years. I know I would never give him a contract of this size.
Okay, so I didn't realize this on the contract before that he was currently on.
Okay.
Apparently, all 3 years of his contract included opt-outs.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that maybe possibly had to do with it, that he probably was going to opt out. But I'm trying to find his statistics for this year. Like, has he been cleaning it up where he would be using his opt-out? Like,
not necessarily. I mean, here, I'll take a look at this too. I mean,
okay, so he's hitting 247, not great. 22 home runs, not great for a power hitter of his stature.
You're in San Francisco, it's hard to hit home runs at that ballpark.
Agreed, but he's mounted as a massive power hitter.
Yeah.
69 RBIs, not great for this point of the season, considering he's one of their top hitters, and his OPS is under 800.
Mm-hmm. I'm just reading this article off of ESPN. This is from Jeff Passan, and he says that Chapman has been one of the most productive players in baseball, and he's got a powerful bat with the third best defense in the major leagues.
Oh, you and I are reading the same article. Okay.
Yeah, I'm reading off of ESPN, and it's weird. I guess, I mean, Passan knows more about baseball. I mean, Passan eats, sleeps, and breathes baseball.
Top insider. Yeah.
I trust him more than pretty much any other baseball insider. And, he also mentioned how Chapman has an adjusted OPS 21% better than league average. I mean, I think Chapman is a good player. I think he's decent, but I don't think he's going to keep up whatever productivity that the Giants are seeing in him right now.
He's also not a lead guy. That's not his role. Like, all the teams he played for, he was a perfect role player fitting in. Now, the other number, 31 years old, giving a 6-year deal.
Exactly. And, this kind of, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be, I don't think it'll be the same. I don't know if anything could be the same. But this kind of reminds me of the Hicks deal the Yankees made a couple of years ago, where this just...
He was 31 also.
He was entering his age 31 season. I always thought that, before that contract, I thought Hicks could be, a decent role player, like a third or fourth outfielder or something like that. And I thought he could maybe be on the Yankees for maybe like another year or two or something like that. That contract came completely out of left field. There was no indication that the Yankees thought that highly of him. And, that's what I'm getting. Those are the vibes I'm getting with this contract. There was really, for me, Chapman does not scream superstar for me. The contract of this, you got to give it to somebody who's more noteworthy. Now, I may be wrong, and Chapman could maybe tear it up. I don't see it happening. I don't think Chapman's going to be super productive for the duration of this contract. You're keeping him through his age 37 season. I think he can maybe give you maybe 3 maybe for decent more.
Usually you get halfway through and then the contract starts to hurt.
I think this is going to hurt the Giants in the long run as we get into maybe year 3 or 4 of this contract.
That's usually how it goes.
I think this is too big of a gamble for the Giants. I do think this is important.
I mean, maybe this is their best player, so they just said let's pay him to keep him in the Bay because no one really wants to play in San Francisco right now.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong. This could be the jackpot for the Giants. Maybe Chapman goes off for them. I doubt it.
Maybe, but it's a tough offensive ballpark, like you said, to play in to hit homers. That's going to be the tough.
I mean, I think they're more in love with his glove than his bat. But even still, I mean, won't he lose range as he ages, and he won't be able to make the outstanding diving plays or diving stabs and throwing guys out from his knees at third base?
I mean, they give you all these percentile stats, like out of that passing story, 90th percentile in bat speed, 96th in average exit velocity. Like, don't call me old school, but I don't look at the exit velocity and the exit velocity. I look with my eyes, not stats.
Yep. The same with me. And, I use I agree with you 100%. I always, eyes come before anything else, if you ask me. I hate relying solely on numbers.
Because stats, those stats could be misleading. What happens if he hits 40 home runs, but his bat speed is not what it used to be? I mean,
yep, exactly. And yeah, this is a gamble for the Giants. I do not see this working out for them for the entire length of this contract. I think Chapman can give you a couple more good seasons, but you get to age 35, 36, 37. I think he's going to be washed up. And who's to say he's going to stay healthy this whole time as well.
The one final thing I'll say is I have something on the show I do with Tom Albano on ETV called BSBS syndrome. Blame Scott Boras syndrome. Again, that's what this is. Who's Chapman's agent? Scott Boras. Obviously, someone fell for the Scott Boras trap again.
Exactly. Boras has always been the master negotiator when it comes to his clients, with the exception of this season or this offseason. Chapman obviously was one of the big names during this offseason, and it took him forever to get a team. And, if other teams weren't willing to give him a contract of this size, then, I guess, when we were looking at those numbers from Chapman, they're good numbers. I'll give him that. I mean, 247 is a little low for me.
Yeah, me too.
But I mean, he's got power and he's got the glove. I don't see that being worthy of a contract of this size.
Of $151 million over 6 years? Holy cow.
No, I don't. I just don't.
If he's getting $151 million, are we putting more on Soto when he hits the market after this year? I mean,
Soto should blow this out of the water.
Well, no, obviously. But I'm just saying, like, if Chapman's getting 151 and he's not doing great. Look at Soto's season. He was having an amazing season. All right, I want 600, 650, which I don't know if anyone's going to pay him that. But
yeah, it's an interesting contract, to say the least. And we'll see how it goes. But, yeah, I think we both can agree that this is a little ridiculous. And we'll quickly go into our pretender/contender playoff predictions for this postseason. So, yeah, Major League Baseball season is almost over. The regular season, that
crazy.
It's wild to even think about it. It's crazy to think that we've done at least one episode of this show for the entire baseball season, dating back to opening day, even dating back beforehand to spring training. It's wild how this season has just flown by in the blink of an eye. And I just wanted to quickly look at the standings around Major League Baseball. So I think when it comes to pretender and contenders, I think we both can agree on one thing. We can agree on who the teams in the American League are going to be. I think it's no secret that the teams in the American League that are going to be in the postseason are the Orioles, the Yankees, the Guardians, the Twins, the Royals, and the Astros. I think those are the 16. I think there's no doubt in anybody's mind those are the 6 teams that'll be in the American League playoffs this year. Obviously, it is to be determined as to who's going to be a wild card and who's going to be a division winner. The Orioles right now have the best record in the American League at 81-60, just a half game above the Yankees. Obviously, that division is going to come down to that final series at Yankee Stadium, the final week of the season. Hopefully, the Yankees get out of that funk they're in right now by then. So we'll see what happens there. I think the Red Sox have shown that they were pretenders. They had their moment in the sun. They had a good summer. They exceeded expectations, honestly, if you asked me, with what they were supposed to do this year. But they're 500. They're coming off a disastrous August and September. And I know Ben is probably having a fit right now with the way that they played this year.
Well, it's been up and down all year for the Red Sox.
Yeah. In terms of who I think is a pretender in the playoffs, I think the Twins are pretenders. I just don't see the Twins going far in the playoffs. I think they're going to be a wild card team, regardless of who they play. I see them getting booted in the first round of the wild card round. The Royals, they have exceeded expectations. Last week, I did tell Tom that I think that I like the Royals more than the Guardians. But the Royals have, and since that episode, the Royals have slumped.
No.
They're 3-7 in their last 10, so go figure.
Oh, so you're jinxing the Royals now.
I guess I jinxed them pretty good. But I don't know if I can trust Cleveland, because how many times have we thought that they would take off in the playoffs and they just come up short?
Well, they'll play good for like the wild card round if they make it, or the first round. They gave the Yankees a good fight back in the day.
Yes.
I don't know. I think that whole Central Division is a little bit of a pretender, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, if I had to pick if I had to make a choice for the American League, I really don't want to. But I mean, the Orioles have the best record. The Astros have the experience. If I would have to choose between the Astros and the Orioles, I mean, it's not always the best team that wins. I think it's going to be between the Orioles and the Astros in the ALCS. I would, obviously, me being a Yankee fan, I try not to be. When I'm doing predictions, I try not to be biased.
Right.
I don't trust the Yankees at all in the playoffs.
I don't either.
I really don't. So I think it's going to come down to the Orioles and the Astros. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say the Orioles will be my prediction for the American League pennant winners this year. My early prediction. Obviously, I'll probably get into more with Ben as we get closer down the stretch.
Yeah, you guys will do playoffs when they come up.
Yeah,
so.
But I think when it comes to pretenders, I think that the Central, for the most part, is a pretender. And
I agree.
Yeah, and I think the Yankees are pretenders too. Why should I trust them after all the times they've just fooled me in the past?
Well, the pitching is going to do them in, number one. The Yankees, the injuries, number two, on top of it. So I think the Orioles it's just their time to win. I mean, Corbin Burns and that starting rotation just looks way better. Even the Astros without like the Verlander back in the day, like really dominating. I mean, I just think their pitching is better too, even with their injuries that they've had in their starting rotation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the National League, I think we got 5 out of the 6 teams locked up, which are the Dodgers, the Phillies, the Brewers, the Padres, and the Diamondbacks. Those are the 5 teams that we know for a fact that I think are going to be in the playoffs for the National League. That final wild card spot, like we mentioned, is up for the taking. And that's being fought between the Braves and the Mets and the Cubs. The Cubs, though, are 4.5 back. So I think the Cubs are kind of too far. I think it's too late for them to get back in the mix of things.
Yeah, I think it's Braves Mets for that last spot.
The Braves and the Mets. And that's where the challenge comes in. Who do you think is a pretender and who do you think is a contender?
Well, I'll tell you right off the bat, I think the Brewers are actually a pretender. I think that they compete. They have good seasons. They can't get past the first round. They just don't. Their pitching is good, but they don't have their names. They've had some injuries. Yelich out for the year, even though he hasn't done much for them.
But actually, he had a good year this year before the injury. But
shocker, because he hasn't been hitting for much power. I mean, that's not his game. But I just think not having the names is going to hurt them. The NL East. There could be 3 teams coming out of there. I mean, the way it's looking at this rate. The West, I mean, the Dodgers, it's Dodgers and nobody else.
Well, it's
in the
Dodgers,
West.
Diamondbacks, and Padres who are coming out of the West for the playoffs this year.
But I think everyone is saying it's either Dodgers or bust.
Yeah,
Like,
basically. Well, I mean, actually, I'll save this for the playoff predictions episode with Ben as we get closer toward the playoffs. But I mean, the Dodgers, all the pressure is on them, obviously, to win it all with everything that they've gone through this year. If I had to choose that final wild card spot, I mean, the Mets have won 7 in a row. Can they keep it up though for an extended period of time for the rest of the year?
also that massive series at the end of the year with the Braves and the Mets.
Yep.
Also,
It's going to come. Is that at Citi Field or is that in Atlanta?
I think it's in Citi Field, but I'll check.
I think home field's going to play a major role in that series.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the Mets can't fall under the pressure. That's the other scenario because, like we said, what was it in 07 when they had the lead
They had
against
a
Philly?
7-game lead in 2007, and they blew it.
And they had a massive lead. It wasn't just.
Yep, there was a huge lead, and I think they were like only one. I think the stat was like only one team had a 7-game lead in late September and blew the division at that stage of the year, and it was the Mets. So,
Yeah. So, it's at Atlanta, which is worse.
It's always in Atlanta. They're always in Atlanta at the end of the year.
Listen to this schedule. So the final two, the third and second to last series, 4 against Philadelphia. Then they got to go to Atlanta for 4.
That's brutal. 8-game road trip.
No. So it's at home for Philly, then on the road for Atlanta. But it's still brutal that you're playing those two, and then you have Milwaukee to finish the season, which Milwaukee's probably not going to care.
Milwaukee will probably play their minor leaguers at that point.
But that's a brutal stretch.
It is. But it definitely will make for exciting baseball. Part of me wants to think that it's finally the Mets' time to overcome the Braves. I feel like you can only lose them so much that they're due for their time at some point. But then again,
they're also hobbling to the finish line too, a little bit.
Yes, but yeah, we'll see how things end up going. But we're kind of out of time here. But yeah, Nick, thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Hitting for the Cycle. Greatly appreciate it. And thank you everybody for watching this episode. That's our show, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.